Imagine walking outside your house tomorrow morning and finding a massive wall of solid ice stretching all the way to the horizon. The temperature has plummeted to a lethal 40 degrees below zero, and the soil beneath your feet is frozen rock solid. You have no heaters, no electricity, and your entire wardrobe consists of a few pieces of cured deerskin. This was not a brief winter storm, but a sudden, violent global freeze that lasted for over 1,000 brutal years. Roughly 12,800 years ago, the planet was actually recovering beautifully from the last major ice age. Glaciers were melting, sea levels were rising, and human communities were finally starting to settle down into lush valleys. Food was abundant, water was everywhere, and early hunter-gatherers were enjoying an unprecedented era of climate stability. But in the span of just a few decades, an atmospheric catastrophe slammed the brakes on this global warming trend. This terrifying event is known by scientists as the Younger Dryas, the most volatile climate shift in human history. Within a single generation, the entire northern hemisphere was thrown right back into deep, apocalyptic glacial conditions. Average temperatures dropped by up to 27 degrees Fahrenheit in mere years, causing ecosystems to completely shatter. Lush forests withered into dry Arctic tundras, and the vital freshwater lakes that humans relied on froze solid. The megafauna that humans hunted for survival, like mammoths and giant bison, began dying off at an alarming rate. Our ancestors were suddenly trapped in a pitch-black ecological bottleneck where their tried and true survival strategies failed completely. To understand how dangerous this weather event was, you have to look at the sheer speed of the collapse. Evolution usually gives species hundreds of thousands of years to adapt to changing temperatures and landscapes, but the Younger Dryas didn't give our ancestors time to evolve. It forced them to engineer their way out of extinction. Imagine a tribal elder who grew up picking wild berries in a warm, sunny meadow filled with peaceful rivers. By the time that elder reached old age, that same meadow was a barren, wind-scoured plain of snow and ice. The psychological shock of watching their entire world freeze over must have been absolutely terrifying for early humans. With their primary food sources vanishing, separate nomadic bands began turning on each other in a desperate race for resources. Territorial border conflicts exploded across the globe as starving clans fought to protect the last remaining unfrozen oases. It was a brutal, zero-sum game where losing a single hunting ground meant absolute starvation for your entire family. If humans wanted to survive this millennia-long winter, they had to completely reinvent the way they interacted with nature. The first major engineering breakthrough occurred in how our ancestors managed and preserved the energy of fire. Before the freeze, fire was a convenient tool used primarily for cooking food and keeping a few predators at bay. During the Younger Dryas, fire became a highly guarded, life-sustaining technology that could never be allowed to go out. Humans developed primitive heat retention systems by lining their campfires with heavy, dense volcanic stones that absorbed thermal energy. These glowing stones acted like ancient radiators, radiating heat into the shelters long after the wood burned down to ash. They also re-engineered their temporary brushwood shelters into heavy, winterized subterranean pit houses dug deep into the earth. By digging several feet into the ground, they used the natural insulation of the soil to protect themselves from sub-zero winds. The roofs were tightly woven with heavy mammoth ribs and layered with thick turf to trap every single ounce of body heat. But shelter was only half the battle, because human bodies require massive amounts of calories to generate internal heat in the cold. With the giant megafauna disappearing, humans had to shift their hunting focus towards smaller, faster, and more elusive game. This massive logistical challenge forced our ancestors to invent a brand new generation of high-velocity hunting technology. They engineered ultra-lightweight throwing spears tipped with micro-refined, razor-sharp flint blades designed to pierce thick hide from a distance. They also developed the earliest complex projectile systems, utilizing flexible wooden bows to launch arrows at lightning speed. These technological leaps allowed a single hunter to take down fast Arctic foxes and deer without expending valuable running energy. They also transformed their social structures, shifting from isolated family units into massive cooperative tribal networks. They shared vital geographic data about which distant valleys still held unfrozen springs and where small game was hiding. By pooling their resources and knowledge, humans managed to survive a weather event that wiped out dozens of larger mammal species. When the 1,000-year freeze finally broke and the planet warmed up again, humanity emerged as a radically different creature. We didn't just survive the ultimate winter, we used the crisis to completely upgrade our cognitive and technological toolkit. The intense pressures of the Younger Dryas forced humans to pay closer attention to seed life cycles and animal domestications.
Many anthropologists believe this global freeze was the ultimate catalyst that pushed humanity to invent agriculture. We automated our food supply because the weather proved that relying purely on wild nature was a direct path to extinction. The next time you turn up the thermostat in your warm house during a winter storm, remember the survivors of the Great Freeze. Remember the simple stickmen who dug into the frozen mud and kept the embers burning through 1,000 years of darkness. They proved that while the weather can rewrite the geography of a planet, human ingenuity is the ultimate survival mechanism.